infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
I'm hoping that once this comes out and people hear it, they kind of will have some input on this, because you've got some strange things going on there, huh?
Absolutely, and it's still ongoing, so I just don't know what's going on. Well, I sort of worked it out, I think. And then something else happens, and I think, ooh.
Right. Yes, as it likes to do, right? It likes to change itself, these things do, and keep us guessing. And Debbie, where in the UK are you?
So I am in Somerset, which is in the southwest.
Got it. Okay. That way everybody has a reference point for where we are talking about today. So, and of course, with this, I would really like to go chronologically. So if you wanted to start at the beginning, and however you need to set this up, feel free, take your time, whatever you need to do. But take it away, Debbie.
Okay. Well, I got in touch with you because with the pandemic, we get to work from home. And I was listening to your podcast about little people, the little sort of, was it like a little brownie or something?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which one it was. So I was tapping around, and there are some things that have happened that I could never, ever explain. And I'm always looking for an explanation for them. And that's why I got in touch. And it was about something that happened a long time ago, about 1990, 91. And I was training as a nurse up in Norfolk, so up in the east of the country. And there is a big estate there that you can wander around. It's got trails all the way through, and it's hundreds of acres. And we used to, as student nurses, when we'd finished and wanted to, let off steam, either go and walk, hike through the woods for a couple of miles, or go up to the coast. We're about 10 miles away from the beach, so go up to the beach and just muck about on the beach. And this day was summer, and there was only two of us, and we must have been on an early shift, so early shift finished 3:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30. And so we'd got back to the accommodation and changed, and then decided to go out for a walk, 4:30, 5 o'clock. Oh, let's go to the woods because it's nice and cool, and we'll just have a wander around. And so the two of us went to the usual car park. There were a lot of cars leaving at that point, but that was normal then, that we used to go to the beach in the evening and go to the woods in the evening, because then you would have no tourists. And you still got a couple of hours to enjoy. And we did the usual hike, and we were just chatting and goofing off and just, chewing the fat about what had gone on in the day and what we were doing in our training. And we got to a point where we were almost back to the car, and it was dusk. When it goes still, just before it starts to get dark, and you start losing the light.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point in the path just before we got back to the car park where the path went two sides round an oval stretch of woodland. And we got to that point, and we were just like, which one's the shortest way back? And so we decided one would take one path and one would take the other path. and see which one was the shortest. And it was a spur of the moment decision that we would do that. We would split up. I took the right-hand path, so the wood, this oval patch of woodland was on my left, and we couldn't see one another until we got back out of the woodland and we were at the car park. And so I'm walking along and I noticed on the left-hand side that there was something coming through the ferns. So this is a mixed woodland, but mostly pine and fir. So there isn't very much heavy undergrowth, but there was quite a lot of rhododendrons and quite a lot of ferns, and the ferns were about 3 or 4 foot high. But this thing made a diagonal straight line towards me through the ferns. You could see the ferns moving as it came towards me, and it made me stop. And I thought, ooh, what on earth is that? Is it, some wildlife? Is it a deer? Is it a fox? That's what you assume if something's making its way through. And it got to within about 3 foot of me, 3 foot of the path, and stopped dead. And I thought, oh, okay, it spotted me and it wants me to move off, and it's just going to lay low and wait until I've gone and then cross the path. I carried on walking and it paced me along the path. About 3 foot out, you could see the ferns moving. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't see what it was because the undergrowth was so dense. Every time I stopped, it stopped. Every time I started moving, it started moving. We got to the point where I was stopped, faced it, and sort of said, oh yeah, really, really funny. I don't think this is funny. And was like trying to call it out, trying to get rid of it. Couldn't see what it was. Couldn't get into the undergrowth to see what it was. So carried on, started walking faster and faster because I was a bit creeped out at that point, and we were losing the light, and it kept up with me and it kept pacing. Never got any closer, never caught a glimpse of it, but every time I stopped, it stopped. Every time I moved, it moved. And I got out of the woodland and my friend was coming out of the other side of the woodland, and we both exited at the same time. Both got in the car. We were in the only car left in the car park. And the first thing she said to me was, I don't think that was very funny. And I asked what it was. And she said, you trying to creep me out by crawling through the ferns. At which point we sort of hightailed it out of there because it was just, no, I didn't crawl through the ferns at you. And we both had the same experience separately, never been able to explain what it was, never saw it, but that is an abnormal behaviour, I would say, for a wild animal.
I would agree. And most wild animals cannot mimic voices. And if she actually thought that was you because she scolded you, then that is extremely strange. Now, Debbie, did she also have the experience of something moving through the ferns towards her?
She refused to talk about it ever again.
Oh, gosh. So that really bothered her so maybe she did know that it wasn't you, but because she admonished you for it, but maybe she knew like something's wrong here.
Yeah, that was almost like a knee-jerk reaction that I'm frightened and I don't know what this is, so I'm going to have a go at you. We still probably had a year or 18 months of our training to go, and we actually shared a flat, and she refused to talk about it.
Wow. But you didn't hear anything. You heard no voices.
No voices at all. It was silent.
Oh.
But it was the fact that what caught my eye was this diagonal line of ferns moving as it came from behind me and made a direct path towards me. And this is a you know, like a pine forest woodland, so you're treading on pine needles, and you know they don't make a sound, do they?
Did you guys ever? I'm assuming you probably didn't, but did you ever go back there for a walk?
We've gone back there, but only in the light and only in the daytime. I've never gone back in the evening, and I've never actually taken that path. We've always diverted round on another path because there's lots and lots of paths in that woodland. I just don't. I don't know what it was. I can't tell you that I saw a little person or a little whatever, because it never came out of the ferns. Never. It was never visible, but it was aware that I knew it was there, which again is unusual for an animal. Normally so I've seen, you know, deer where you'll approach a deer and it will just sink down into the undergrowth until you've gone past and then rise up again. They don't want to interact with human beings, normally animals, do they? This was really unusual behaviour.
Yeah, for it to essentially follow you out like that. And then to have essentially, well, you don't know because she won't talk about it, but you had a shared experience in a way, even though you guys were separate. Yeah. But what really drives this home for me is the fact that you're on this one side of the path having this experience, and she's over here having this, what all that we know is she heard your voice, which is very creepy, by the way. And you didn't even prompt her when you guys both exited. You didn't say, oh, there was something following me, it's so weird. And she immediately just said, why would you call to me through the forest? That was really creepy. So that was confirmation to you that there really was something very strange going on. And it is to me as well, because, you know, you could say, well, maybe it was an odd animal doing something odd, you know, acting strangely. But the whole voice thing and the fact that she was that creeped out and still won't talk about it, that is odd.
She won't. She won't talk about it. And she said, why were you creeping through the ferns?
Oh, so she did say that, though. So she may have had the exact same thing go on, with something essentially paralleling both of you guys out then.
That's what I assumed from what she'd said, that she'd had exactly the same experience as I just had. And this thing it wasn't behind me, it was at the side of me, and it paced me. Every time I took a step, and, you know, the ferns would move as it was walking at the same pace that I was, or sort of half running towards the end. I was not particularly happy about that. And she would have seen me if I didn't do it, didn't crawl through the ferns, but you would have seen a human being at that point, because there was ferns and brambles and, you know, what an undergrowth is like under trees. You would have seen a person. I can't remember what I was wearing, but it was sort of like 1990s fashion, which was fairly day glow, wasn't it? So you would have seen me.
Oh, I don't quite know what to make of that. I thought, well, it could be some strange little deer or something, but the voice thing and the paralleling is very odd.
Yeah, it's something I've never been able to explain ever. You know, I've seen lots of wildlife, and I've seen, you know, I've been fishing, and I've had like a mole actually come up out in between my feet while I've been fishing.
That's awesome.
Because I've been so still. But as soon as it caught scent of a human being, it was gone. It was out of, you know, it was an experience that lasted sort of, you know, less than a minute. That animals don't like human beings normally.
Well, and might I say, Debbie, just to set this up for everybody, not only are you a trained NICU nurse, but in one of your emails, you also mentioned you're a trained archaeologist. So
I am, actually, yeah.
I wanted to put that out there.
So when you're trained to observe, you observe, don't you? And you can't take that away. And I was probably, I think, 18 months 2 years in my nurse training. So we'd done, we were doing a lot of observation, and we got into that habit of observing. So you also, I'm quite inquiring in terms of I want to know what something is. So your mind goes through all the possibilities, and I thought it was an animal to start off with, and then it's not acting the same as an animal. Is it a person? I call out, no, they're not answering, but they know that I'm here. They're acting as though they know I'm here. It was just really, really weird. I just can't explain it. I don't know what it was.
I bet you're just dying for your friend to finally tell from beginning to end exactly what she experienced.
Yes. Yeah, it's just good to... I've never told anybody about it because you couldn't explain it. And it was just one of those things, one of those catalogue things. So when you train as a nurse or a medic, every single hospital has a ghost story or several, and you will experience some really funny things. And it's just one of those things that's really funny, but I can't explain it. And it's just something that's added on to your experiences, your life experiences, really. And I'd love to explain it. I really would. I don't think I can.
Well, let's talk about your second encounter in Cornwall.
Second encounter in Cornwall was a few years later. So I think about 1994, 95. And this was a holiday in May that was booked by my mother-in-law. So I have no idea exactly where it was. But it was down in South Cornwall, and it was near Helford, and I think Smith, and all that sort of the Helford Peninsula. So it's South Cornwall, and it's very wooded. And we had the directions for this place, and it was an old water mill. And so there was the mill building and the mill stream on the right-hand side, if you looked at it. And then there was a row of derelict cottages, the other side of the mill building, which was separated by about a 5-foot track. And then it was surrounded by woods, and there was a driveway of about a quarter to a half of a mile out to the road. So this thing was in the middle of nowhere. I absolutely hated it on site. It gave me that utter creeps on site, the whole building, the whole complex. I just felt totally creeped out. The row of cottages, so the one nearest the road was intact, but looked as though it hadn't been lived in for a good 20 or 30 years. There were cobwebs all at the windows and completely backed out. Next one had the roof missing. And then the third one, so this was a terrace of 3 cottages, was just 3 walls. So it was open to the front. The roof and the first floor had gone. And there was a pile of bricks and rubble in the middle of the floor. And then the path, there was a 5-bar gate, and it went into the wood. It was one of those really, really creepy places, so that you would wonder that there was, you'd expect to see a face at one of the windows looking out from the derelict cottages at you. It gave me the utter creeps, this place. It gave my husband the utter creeps as well. We had to take the bin up to the main road, be emptied while we stayed there. And we were so creeped out, we took it up together because we didn't want nobody wanted to take it up on their own. It was just like, I don't want to be out there on my own. It's horrible. So I can't remember how long we'd been there, but we'd also got my eldest daughter, who was about 2.5, so needed a sleep during the day. and she'd gone to sleep. My parents-in-law were inside reading newspaper or just having a cup of coffee. And I wandered outside and looked in the mill stream, then wandered round the front of the building, then went and had a look at these houses. Nothing in the first one. It just looked really derelict and I didn't want to touch it at all. Wandered down towards the wood and then had a look in the third cottage, which was just the 3 walls. And I stepped over the threshold into the cottage. And when you do something and you just think, I have made a mistake. When you tread on something or you alert somebody or something, it was that feeling. Because I stepped over the threshold and a buzzing started. And it was a hum. It was like a and I thought that I had disturbed a bee's nest or a wasp's nest in the ruins of this house. And so I took a couple more steps forward to see where it was, because I thought, you know what, I'll see where it is. If it's in the corner of the building, I can go back and say, nobody go into that building because there's a wasp's nest and we don't want to get stung. And the buzzing got louder and more intense. And it was constant. It was and it seemed to fill the whole the atmosphere, not just inside this ruined building, but outside, the whole environment around this mill building. Again, trying to work it out, I actually knelt down on the ground and put my head to the ground, my ear to the ground, to see whether it was mine workings or a quarry, or was it something, under the ground. There was a telegraph pole, and I did the same at the telegraph pole. Was it the wires buzzing? Was it electricity? Because it had that electricity sort of hum. When you go too close to like an electricity power line, and it's got that that you can feel best. Nothing. Wasn't anything to do with that. It was still going on, and it was constant. And I went back into the house and asked my husband to come out to see whether he could hear it. He could, and I explained what had happened, and I'd gone into this, and the buzzing started, and I'd listened here, and I'd done this, and I couldn't work it out. And he did exactly the same. No, it wasn't under the ground. It wasn't to do with the telegraph pole. Yeah, it was just seemed to be in the air all around us. And we walked towards the ruined building again. And at that point, the buzzing seemed to go up out of the building and go round the ring of trees that this mill building was in a clearing. And it seemed to go round the top of these trees, and it moved all the tree tops, and then came back down into the building, and it sort of coalesced down. So it got down to almost like a shoebox size shape, but it was in midair, about 20 foot up, and you could point to it. That's where the sound's coming from. But we couldn't see anything. There was nothing to see. We could hear this noise. We knew this noise was there, and we could pinpoint where it was coming from. And we were talking about it and just sort of like going, yeah, I don't know what it is. What is it? Feeling slightly worried, feeling under threat at that point, when we both sort of whispered to one another, "It's looking at us." And we were both aware that this thing knew that we were there and it could see us, which was really creepy and horrible. Still can't explain what it was. At that point, we backed away and went back in the house. For the next 2 or 3 hours, every so often, one of us would just put our head outside the door, and the buzzing was still there. You could still hear it. We didn't go outside the cottage for the rest of the day. The next day it was gone, and we didn't see or hear anything again on that stay. I think I disturbed it when I walked into that building, and it was not very annoyed, not very happy. I still have no idea what that was because we couldn't see it. It was invisible.
That is pretty remarkable, though, that you both knew exactly where it was. And I've never quite heard anything like that where it went up and out, and then it was going around the trees, and you could see the treetops moving.
Yeah. Yeah, you know when you get a gusts of wind and you can see the underside of the leaves, so the leaves are a different colour. You could see that happening, and as it went round in this circle, that the clearing that this mill building was in, and then sort of came back down into the ruined building.
I mean, it certainly doesn't sound like a classic ghost situation, does it? I mean, it sounds more like some kind of an elemental, FRAY, something just ancient, part of the land kind of a thing. I don't know.
No, neither do I. And I think it was whatever it was, just moved. And I just happened to catch it there, and I disturbed it, and it was annoyed, and it made us aware that it was not annoyed. I don't think it was a ghost. We've lived in a haunted house, and that is entirely different. That's like an electric pulse on your face. I get a real tingle on the back of my skull whenever there's when we lived in this haunted house. I would get a real sort of like almost like pins and needles on the back of my scalp, and there was nothing like that. And there was an awareness. It knew that we were looking at it, and it was looking back.
No wonder you guys wanted to get the heck out of there. That would have been a very unsettling experience, especially when you go back to this rental home and you keep peeking your heads out and it's still buzzing away out there.
It's still there. I know. We were back there in the area 2 years ago. So this was 94, 95. And so we were back there a couple of years ago. And we said to one another, should we go and see if we can find the mill building and and see where this thing was? Because we've never been able to explain it. And we looked at one another and went, nope, no way are we going back anywhere near there.
That is very unique, Debbie. That is a very unique one. I mean, your first one was too, but I mean, for you both to go, it's looking at us, and you knew right where it was, even though you couldn't actually see it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't remember if we pointed or not, or whether it was sort of like a don't point at it. Let's just go back inside. Yeah, I've never been able to explain it, except it was a single thing.
Now
it was one single entity thing,
right.
Elemental, whatever it was.
Did you guys tell your in-laws about that?
No, they would not have accepted anything like that. They were fairly religious, so no, nothing like that.
Gotcha. Did they ever, during the several hours that it was outside buzzing, did they ever hear that and remark on what that noise was, or?
No, not at all. No.
Probably best they didn't, because then, if that would be me, I would be like, the buzzing, yes, you have no idea, actually, not that I do, but the thing that we just went through. I would have a hard time keeping my mouth closed on that one. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I trod somewhere I shouldn't, and I set something off, and I really don't want to. Yeah, that wouldn't have worked at all.
No.
Not at all.
I mean, especially when you're very level-headed and, like you said, you're a trained observer and probably likely skeptical. You're more science-minded. You're a nurse and an archaeologist, and then you have these things going on, and you're like, okay, can't quite really explain that or explain it away as something mundane.
Yeah, it changes your worldview. You have to get used to it, or you have to really think about it. So when we were living in a haunted house, so we had to move around. Do you mind if I go on about a haunted house?
Oh, no, please do.
No? So as I said before, we lived in a haunted house, and this was a house I had never seen before we moved in, because we've moved all over the country with my husband's job. And the moment I arrived and went through the door, it was like passing through a force field. It was, complete tingling, hair stands up, back of my scalp itching in pins and needly. And this haunted house, I used to see electric blue flashes of light. The cat used to watch something go up and down the stairs, and you couldn't see anything. My husband was working nights at one point, and he came home to sleep, and we got 2 small children at this point, and I took them out for the day, and we did loads of stuff just so Dad could sleep. And we came back about 3:30, and he came stamping down the stairs. He said, "Why on earth did you keep walking up and down the stairs and standing outside the bedroom door and breathing? I could hear you." I'm like, "We weren't in the house." Sorry, it wasn't us. But the worst thing with that house was I had got in from work one day, and I was just going through the post by the kettle. I was like making up coffee before I have to go to school and pick the girls up from school, and I'd still got my coat on. I just flung the keys on the work counter, and about 6 inches behind my right ear, something coughed, this really guttural, chesty cough. I can't do it. I can't make this chesty sound. I said out loud, oh, is that the time? I really must get to school, and turned round and thought, if I see a person there, I just don't know what I'm going to do. There was no one there. And this thing used to breathe, used to come and stand in the doorway of the lounge and breathe. It used to get quite attached to, I think it was attached more to me than anyone else. Yeah, and I had the pins and needly on my scalp every single time it made an appearance. That was an interesting house. We lived there for about 2 years. That was also a house that we saw an alien big cat from. That was well known in the village, actually, that we were living in. This was a turnpike cottage. So turnpikes were used in the sort of 1800s in the UK, when roads were all private. So there were these little cottages, and you had to pay a fee to go along the private road. And most of them now are like little cottages out on the road in sort of on the roads. And so this was a turnpike cottage, and the dining room looked over a field at the back. And we saw from that dining room window one day, in fact, we watched it for about 40 minutes, a big black cat hunting in the field. And I can tell you it was about the size of a Labrador, because at exactly the same spot in the field we had seen foxes and deers, and it was bigger than a fox but smaller than a deer. So it was Labrador size. It had a big, long, tail in a C shape, that curve that they have. But what was most interesting, which I thought was really, really interesting, which proves almost to me that they are a living animal, was this thing was hunting. The crop had just been taken off the field, and when they cut wheat and you get those strips of straw before they roll them up into straw bales, those straw bales, those straw, you get rabbits and mice and everything hiding in, and they're a really good area to hunt in if you're a predator. This thing was going along the lines of straw and hunting and searching for food. And we watched it for a good 40 minutes. And I can just say, anybody who's seen something unusual, it does go through your head that you're just like, oh, one, they do exist. Two, you try and work out, what is it, a fox? Is it a badger? Is it a deer? Is it whatever else it could be? Do you try and rationalize it? At no point do you think, shall I get a camera? You just don't.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. And, now we know, Debbie, that you've lost it, because we all know that black cats just cannot exist in the UK. So we keep hearing that over and over, right? Yeah. It's like, it's not, and they do that here in the States too. In certain locations, the park services say, no, we don't have big cats out in this area. And people are like, yeah, totally watched it, doing whatever it was doing. Yeah. It's a real thing. It's out here. So you guys watched it for a really long time, though. That's very cool.
And what made it was really funny. About 2 or 3 days later, we had the man in to service the gas boiler, and he was a local. And he went, "Oh, I bet you have a really good view of the black cat from here."
Oh.
It's like, what? You just watched it.
He just nonchalant says that?
It was well known in the area.
Yeah, that's awesome.
See it here and see it there.
Oh, that is cool.
I know. It was just like, yeah, we just watched it. We just watched it a couple of days ago.
That's a big cat, though. The size of a Labrador. That's a big kitty.
Yes, exactly. And you can estimate the size because it was bigger than a fox and smaller than a deer. Mm-hmm. And, it's in between those two sizes. And so it's got to be a Labrador size animal.
Debbie, was there any indication of who the breather, cougher entity was?
There was. So, I suppose, I can't remember how long after or during this time, we had the farmer come and do something in the cottage, because they owned the cottage, because we were just renting this cottage. And he came in and was telling me about the history of the cottage. And the last person who lived there, who was worked on the farm, was in the 1950s, and he was a herdsman, and he had died from TB, which explains the coughing and the chesty cough.
Wow. Boy, I bet you were like, well, bingo, that solves that.
I was like, that's why it's so chesty. That's why I can't even do an impression of it, because it was so chesty. This a real lung damage chest beat cough, which I can't do.
Do you know if he had lived there for a very long time?
I think he had, yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember how long she said, but I think he'd been part of the farm, the farm, and lived there for a number of years.
Mm.
And was, I think, probably 50s and 60s when he died.
So, all right. So I have a question for you. So you are, from what I've heard, it sounds like you are, in fact, sensitive in some way, shape, or form, more than a lot of people, more than I can say I am, that's for sure. So have you been aware of this, if you want to call it a gift or this ability your whole life? Or, I mean, even when you have been walking into certain places, you immediately get a feeling about it, whether that's bad or good. I mean, have you been aware of this your whole life?
I would say probably yes. I can remember we, as teenagers, you're at school and you do these sort of goofy things, and we were just doing this experiment where we were trying to read one another's thoughts, and just an idiotic girl type thing. I bet you can't think what I'm thinking, and I got every single one. And they were random things. They were a double-decker London bus, and they were stethoscope, and they were, spring onion. I think you call them scallions. Like really random things.
And these were like things that could be confirmed. Like they would think something and then like maybe write it down, right? And then you would say
no,
it.
They wouldn't write it. They wouldn't write it down. I would write it down and then give it to them. We were just doing this. I can't remember how we did it, but it was just like when I got 3 for 3 or 4 for 4, whatever it was, and then we were just sort of like, we won't do that anymore because that's a bit worrying.
Right.
Yeah, I've always had feelings about things, so I thought for a long time that I would die in a white car, that I would be killed in a white car. And when I was doing my archaeology training, we had to go up to Sutton Hoo for a day, which is in Suffolk. And the college lent us a car, and it was a white one. And the moment I saw it, I thought, that is the car. I'm going to die in this car. And I held us up forever. I had like 5 wheeze, and then I'd forgotten something, and then I had to get this. I held us up, and everybody was really moaning, I don't want to get in this car. I really don't want to get in this car. And holding us up changed what was going to happen. We got to a point near Sutton Hoo, and a car came round the corner, and because I'd held us up, it just grazed the car where I was sitting, not smashed straight into it. And the moment this happened, that feeling is gone. That's it. I'm fine. I can go and sit in any white car and drive anywhere. White car, that's fine. A couple of times I have made us come back early from vacation. Once it was really, 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 we really, 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 really got to get home. And the roof had leaked, and it had gone through the floor as well. So it had gone through like 2 stories. And the second time I did that, my father-in-law had broken his hip. I've also, when we were actually living in the Turnpike Cottage, we'd gone to London for the day, and so we'd taken the train, and then we'd booked tickets back. And all the way through the day in London, I was getting more and more wound up, and we have to get this earlier train. We must get this earlier train. We really, really, and it was getting really, really, really pressing that we have to get this earlier train. So that I ran through London and ran down the platform and got us all on this earlier train. And the train we were booked on derailed.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, you are beyond handy to have around. That is spectacular. The white car thing was cool enough, but then you have a train derailment that you actually were able to avert?
It was really, 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 really important. We weren't on this train. It was really, and it's really, really important. But in the same way, I'll get good feelings. So if something's a good feeling, that's fine. And I don't know whether it's chicken or egg, whether you get the experiences because you can see the experiences, or you put out some sort of, I don't know, some sort of extra energy, so they sort of hone in on you. I don't know. I really don't know.
That's a good point, and a very valid question. Yeah.
Yeah, because the third invisible thing, which we've had ongoing, when somebody, which I could go on to now. So it's a couple of miles away from us. There is a path, and it is a path that goes across a field. I've sent you pictures of this, and it just goes across the field. It's not a wood. It's a quarter of a mile path, and it goes from one road to another, and it crosses a field, and that's all it does. But it's a really good place to find sloes for sloe gin, and it's a really good place to find blackberries, and it's a really good place just to wander down. There's a badger set in the middle of it, so you can have a look at the badgers, and it's really nice, a lovely place. But it's slightly weird on occasions. It's a quarter of a mile, so a quarter of a mile should take you 10, 15 minutes to stroll. Sometimes it can take half an hour, and it seems to just go on. I have been told that this is a portal when I mentioned this to someone, and they went, "Oh, I will think about this." And I'm like, okay, then fine, you think about that. So in November, we went to pick sloes for sloe gin, and parked and entered this path. And the pictures you can see it's tunnel-like, it's sort of circular, and it was really, really, really quiet. Normally there's birds and you can hear the wind, and there's rabbits and everything. It was silent, so much so that we were whispering. It was so silent. It was, oh my God, what's going on? We were whispering to one another. My husband went up the bank to pick sloes, and normally I would wander on to the next bit and start picking sloes or blackberries or whatever. But I just got the feeling if we lose sight of one another, something's going to happen to one of us. One of us is just going to disappear, and we'll be, wake up 20 years later or something. It's just really, really, really weird feeling that this place was not right. So carried on walking down, and because it's circular, on the lower right-hand side, as you looked at it, there was a pulsating black cloud that was covering about 2/3 of the path in front of us. It looked like, those like 1930s sun rays that you get in sort of like buildings to stained glass. Mm-hmm. So it was like a quarter circle with rays coming out, pulsating out, but all black and slightly fuzzy around the edges. I asked my husband if he could see it. He couldn't. So we carried on walking towards it, and something came out of this black mass. I couldn't see anything, but you could see the leaf litter being kicked up as it walked. And it walked towards us. And it got within about 4 foot in front of me, and then it was like smoke just dissipated. It just disappeared into the atmosphere. And we decided to not go any further and just went out and walked along the field instead. And the field felt completely normal and fine. I think we possibly brought something back with us. So all through Christmas, January, I kept on finding the rugs rocked up. Stupid thing in the house. The rugs all sort of screwed up around the edges and crumpled up. I kept on blaming the cat until I was standing, and it happened mostly with the hearth rug in the sitting room. And I happened to be standing in the doorway, just looking towards it, and watched it fold up by itself. Nothing visible. I went back in to the room, straightened it up, came back out again, and watched it do it again. At which point I thought, there's something in the house, and I don't want something in the house, so we're going to Google how to get rid of something in the house.
Right.
So basically, it was like chasing something around, banging and saying, go away, I don't want you in the house, from room to room to room, burning sage, because that's what Google said. And we chased this, whatever it was, out of the house, and it went upstairs, and then we were banging and clapping, and it came down the stairs, and we at the base of the stairs is the front door, and our stairs are carpeted, but it sounded like claws on a wooden or uncarpeted staircase as it came down the stairs. Yikes. And out of the front door.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. Really creepy.
Oh my gosh. How did you guys even sleep that night after hearing that?
Because we could see it outside.
What do you mean?
So it outside our front door is like a gravelled courtyard, and then there's a wall with the driveway that goes up the side, and it was sat on the wall. And you couldn't see what it was, but you could see a disturbance in the air as an outline, a bit like Predator. That's what it reminded me of.
Mm.
But you could see a distortion in a shape of some creature. Not a human shape, I will say. It was an animal shape.
Animal shape. If you could liken it to anything, if that's even possible, what would the shape be like?
A big dog.
Oh.
Yeah.
And after you had already heard these, for lack of a better term, claws on your stairs, how lovely. But it's outside, so you were relieved about that, I'm sure.
I was very relieved about that, and it sat on the wall. And you could almost see this shape panting. I mean, we'd obviously made it run around, and you could see it almost heaving its breathing. It was there for about half an hour, 40 minutes, then disappeared. But then we had weeks of almost constant, right? It stayed outside the house, didn't come in. We had, at one point, I opened the front door, and this black shape, like a small dog or cat, rushed past the door and disappeared into the wall. And it moved really, really fast. And I thought it was our cat. We've got 2 black cats and a tabby cat. But I turned around and all 3 cats were sat on 2 stairs up, growling at the front door. We've got one cat who is very, very, very sensitive to it, and you can tell when things are happening. She will not go out. She growls at the door. She is not happy at all. So we started to have, I saw this twice. My youngest daughter saw this. Almost like it could open a portal, and it went in and out, and it was an electric blue ellipse that was in my neighbour's garden. Yay!
At least there's that, right?
Someone's going, yay, it's in my neighbour's garden. I don't want it. Once it was horizontal and about 10 foot up in the air, and once it was vertical. You couldn't see anything coming or out, but it was a flash of about, I don't know, 30, 40 seconds, but you could see an ellipse shape, and it was electric blue. And then you would know that it was around. We've got, in the dining room, is a single story, and it's got a pitched tiled roof, and then our bedroom is above that, and so there's 2 windows at the back of our bedroom, and it sat on the roof and looked in our bedroom window. So I went up to bed while all this was going on, and it was dark, and there were 2 eyes looking in the window and a shadowy shape. I used to quite like looking out of that window, and because the moon rises above the hill behind that window, and I just have not, since all of this started, I can't look out of those windows at all. I don't want to. I don't want to see what's out there. It seemed to also, the energy seemed to draw, I have to say ghosts, because that's what they are. They are human shaped. We have all seen them. So my youngest daughter, my husband and I live in the house, and my husband and youngest daughter have seen someone walk up the drive. I've only seen the back of them walk up the drive and go between the cars, so much so that they've gone out to see whether there's an intruder out there or not. I was standing in the dining room and somebody peered round the French doors at me. It was a man, grey hair, about 50, wearing a boiler suit. As I said, we've got gravel in the courtyard in front of us, and you cannot approach that doorway without me hearing, or without anybody in the house hearing. Nobody there when I looked. So the French doors in the dining room, I can see my neighbour's driveway, and there was a man standing in the neighbour's driveway staring into the house, and we made eye contact. And he was tall, thin, dark hair. We made eye contact, which was okay until about 2 or 3 days later, when I saw my neighbour trimming the hedge in exactly the same place, and he was standing on the back of a pickup truck to reach that height.
Oh boy.
I know.
Oh my gosh, that's giving me the creeps. That is so.
Yeah.
So this is all still going on, though.
It is still going on. So I got a massive lump of iron. I got an old pickaxe head and put it outside the front door, because I thought, no, I'm not having anything in the house. I don't want it. Home should be nice and quiet and comfortable, and don't want anything like that. And that dulled it down for a bit, but it seems to come in waves. I saw something 2 days ago. Something went past the window at the back. It looked like a person, but I have let a thorn bush grow up there and you can't possibly walk where this person was walking. And they didn't appear at the other window. So there's 2 windows at the back and they should have walked past. They didn't go anywhere and you can't physically get down there because I made sure. Is this... So I think this thing that we picked up from the footpath was an elemental type of being. And I think the energy it put out, is that the thing that's drawn ghosts? I don't know.
Your husband, did he see the thing that, and I know you didn't actually really see it per se, you saw like the leaf litter moving, so you knew that something was there that came within 4 feet of you. Did he get a sense of that thing when it came out of the black mass on the footpath?
No, he didn't see it at all.
And what about this part just really creeps me out, that thing that you guys were chasing around the house? Did he see it on the wall?
No, he wasn't at home, he was at work. This was during the day.
Oh, so who were you doing that with?
Youngest daughter. And
how old is she at that time?
22.
Okay. All right. So she's old enough to...
So she's an adult. So,
did she see it?
We could see the outline. We could both see the outline.
Okay.
Sort of, predator-like.
And can I just say, it's really, sorry, just before I lose this thought, because you touched on this, and I think this is just fascinating. If we're assuming this is some kind of an elemental, something like that, I found it really very interesting that you said after you guys were, essentially chasing it around the house, trying to get it outside. You finally get it outside. It's sitting on a wall, watching you. It's panting. I find that fascinating. Yeah. This possibly timeless, whatever it is, whatever an elemental really is, right? It has to draw air. It has to pant. That is so strange to me.
That's what it looked like. That's what it looked like. You could almost say pulsating. I have no idea, but you could see a movement. You could see a movement in it.
I don't know why, Debbie. That part of that story just gave me the willies. There's just certain little things sometimes that get me, and that kind of did. I don't know why. It's sitting on the wall and just whatever that movement it was doing. So at least it's outside. And it's interesting also that you got that lump of iron. When I had Pam on for all of those chats, and I haven't talked to her in a while, and I hope she's doing well. I need to check in with her, but she had sent me not only a bunch of FRAY books, elemental books, but she also sent me a small iron nail, and you're supposed to kind of put it over your doorway and things like that. So you essentially did the same thing. I would be the same as you. Yeah. I would be like, I'm going to find the biggest piece of iron anything that I can and put this out there because, so you guys are basically trying to essentially battle this thing and keep it at bay, but it's now, like you said, maybe other things are feeding, chicken or the egg again, right? Are other things manifesting and drawing energy off this so they're able to essentially show themselves? Or is it because of this thing is creating those? We just don't know, but now you're in this battle, essentially.
Yeah, and what did it open up? What did it open up in my neighbour's garden? She's got a small Jack Russell dog. I felt really guilty about this. She's got a small Jack Russell dog, and she was saying, the dog keeps on barking at nothing in the garden.
Oh, gosh. Did you say anything?
No.
Right. I know, right? Like, what do you say? Oh, well, there's like, have you ever seen Ghostbusters? Have you ever seen those 2 dog-like creatures? Oh, that's what's out there, but it's invisible. Right. Yeah. What do you say? So that's all she said, though. Like, she hasn't said she's seen anything. She just says, the dog is barking at some... Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. You just go, oh, yeah. Might have an idea about that. But...
Right. You're like, oh, that's so weird. I'm going to go back inside now. Have a good day.
No, you just like,
now
I'm not going to go there.
You've got like elementals, you've got shadow people, You've got black masses, and ghosts, like classic ghost situations, and then the tall entity that was very creepy, by the way.
We made eye contact, and I just thought, oh, somebody standing on her driveway. Literally, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it was there 1 minute and gone the next. When I looked up again, it was gone. And then when I saw her husband trim the this great big tall trees and hedge, he was actually standing on the back of a pickup truck.
Oh my goodness!
This person had to have been about 10 foot high. Yeah.
It's just funny what your brain, your brain just quite won't let you process and fire maybe at the proper time until later on, and you're like, oh gosh, okay, didn't notice that before. So this, you thought it was a normal person. He looked solid, and you made eye contact, and you thought, oh, they must have a visitor of some sort then. Yeah,
that's what I thought. Yeah, but like weird, don't dare.
Also, the small little, what you thought was one of your cats, which unfortunately was not, went into the wall. Are you having more activity? Besides seeing actual people peeking around a French door, which would freak me out, what other kinds of things are going on inside of the house that anyone is noticing?
Inside, it seems to be, well, I was going to say it was okay, but I woke up in the middle of the night and I had orange blossom smell blowing across my face. It was you could feel the breeze across my face. And orange blossom is a really old scent, isn't it? It's not a scent that you would find normally anywhere else. But this scent of orange blossom blowing across my face, I refused to open my eyes. I have to say, I was like, I'm not gonna open my eyes.
I don't blame you.
Pretend I'm asleep. I'm gonna pretend I'm asleep. I'm asleep. I am really, really asleep. This went on, I don't know, a few minutes, and then stopped. Every so often, you'll sort of catch, when you catch things in the corner of your eye, just go across a doorway. So, not sure about that. I was, a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week? No, about 10 days ago, I think. I went to get the post. We've got a post box down at the end of the drive. And the cat, the one who's really, really sensitive, and not happy, was not happy all day, really growling at the door, really, really unhappy with everything. It was bright sunshine. We've had some really lovely weather and warm, so I was in a t-shirt, just went down to the end of the drive, got the post out of the box and was walking up the driveway, middle of the driveway, and something stroked the back of my hair and lifted it up. The nearest branch or anything that I could have caught the top of my hair on was about 15 foot away.
That is, it seems to be really tricksterish, but it's starting to get really too close for comfort. I would say a violation.
Yeah, stroking the back of my hair. I didn't like that. We have been back down the path and had another weird experience. So I didn't realise this was midsummer because I only thought about it after we'd actually been for this walk down the path. We'd forgotten something for supper and stopped off at a local store on the way home from work. And so I was not wearing, I'd got heeled shoes on and everything. It was just, we were driving past the turning to the path and it popped in my head, you need to go down the path. You need to go down the path. And so I mentioned it, and I went, oh yeah, okay, then let's go down the path. I didn't realise until afterwards, and whether this has any significance or not, I do not know, that it was Midsummer's Day. And we parked and went into the path, and it was really, really, really dark, and dark in shade. So not, almost like twilight, and it felt menacing. And we were walking down the path, and everything was in shadow, and I could see something detach itself from the shadow, step out onto the path, and then step onto the other side of the path, so the undergrowth at the other side of the path. And it was whether you would call it a shadow figure, or it was a figure. And it detached itself from the shadow, and it was a deliberate, you can see me, and I'm making a statement, and I'm now going to the other side of the path. We went down the path and decided to turn around and come back. And halfway down is a load of there's a badger set. There's loads of holes, and there's hazel trees, and there's some holly bushes. And you can see the trees, and you can see the field beyond the hazel bushes normally. But at this point in the path, there was a wall of holly, and it was from the ground up, 10, 12 feet, and it was a wall. You couldn't see through it. And it looked like, you can get those expanding screen things with like fake, greenery on to hide bins and stuff like that. It looked like that. It looked like there was just a wall of holly. And we were both aware that there was something behind the holly looking out at us, and was not nice. So we were sort of doing that army, hand signals,
yeah,
like on Predator where they do the hand signals. So we were sort of like doing, behind there, and stood looking at it for a couple of minutes and felt utter menace, really. And we both felt that these, whatever they were, these shadow figures, were either side of the path and were escorting us out and past this holly, and that whatever was behind the holly was in control, and we were not welcome. And yeah, it was a really, really nasty feeling.
Did your husband see this when you described earlier that thing detach itself and then go to the other side? Did he see that?
No, but he could feel there was one either side. He said, we got in the car and he said, I didn't like that. There was something either side of the path forcing us out and flanking us out. Yeah, there was. And we both thought there was something behind this holly. And this holly is a like straggly holly bush that you could see through, but this was a wall. Was this I don't know, was this a projection? Was this I don't know. We went a couple of days ago, and the path was back to being a normal path, and the holly bushes were back to being holly bushes.
Oh.
The wall of holly was not there.
So it does come and go, like you said. It just, and is there any rhyme or reason to that? The comings and goings down that path?
Not as far as I can see.
What about the activity at your house?
It seems to come in waves, actually. So it will get ramp up and ramp up and ramp up, and then go quiet, and then it does come in waves.
But you haven't really been able to pin down any kind of pattern?
No, I haven't. But then I haven't really thought about trying to pin down a pattern. Maybe I need to do that, actually.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, not that this all isn't creepy enough, but I wanted to touch back on something that you said during your first trip down that path, and that is that when your husband was apart from you, but you said that you knew that you shouldn't lose sight of him, like you shouldn't lose sight of each other.
Yeah.
That is extremely creepy, and I'm sure you already know what I'm going to say, but it sounds very missing 411 type of a situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
When someone is right there, and even if you lost sight of them, they're probably within earshot very easily, but you just knew you shouldn't lose sight of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew it was really important that we shouldn't lose sight of one another, because something nasty would happen, that one of us would disappear.
Now, I love stories like this, encounters like this. All of what you've shared today is spectacular, but I've said it a million times, so here's 1,000,001. This is going on in your own house, and that is not cool. So,
no.
I mean, I know that we've brought forth a couple theories. We've got some, postulations going, and that's all they are. But, I mean, would you be, and this is totally up to you, would you be interested in people reaching out to me that may be in your area that would be willing to possibly come out? I don't know what they could do, if they could do anything. I'm not looking for a team to go out there and poke and prod and make it worse. Because I really do feel like they're, and I wanted to see what you thought about this too. So I guess it's a two-parter, about the possible investigation, or maybe hopefully fixing the situation. Go back to your tree, little guy. Let everybody go home. No more shadow figures, no more 10-foot tall, whatever the heck that was. Do you think that they're attracted to you because you can see them?
Yes, I do. I think it's almost like that it's putting your head above the parapet, and there are multiple experiences. So I think this is an elemental stroke FRAY thing, and it's bringing in ghosts because they're feeding off on their energy. When we were in Scotland once, a few years ago, well, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago, we were just driving along the coast road going towards Oban, and there was temporary traffic lights. So the traffic lights were red, and we were a sort of second or third car stopped at these traffic lights. There's a sea, couldn't see any seals. And then I looked to the other side of the road, and there was a wood and a mound and some houses beyond this mound. And I became aware that there was a figure in this mound. And all I can say is like a white male. That's all I was aware of in this mound. And it was looking at all the cars and looking at all the people with utter disdain. And then it sort of sat bolt upright because it was aware that somebody in one of those cars was aware of it. And I could see it start at the back of the queue and start scanning the people in all the cars. And I'm getting more and more wound up at this point, and I'm sort of like, don't let me know, don't let it know, turn green, turn green, think about something, tax is boring. I'll think about taxes, no, it's going, no. And I don't know what it would have done if it had got to the car before the lights turned green, but it was aware that someone could see it.
Yeah, and therein lies the problem, because, and not that I'm saying, oh, Debbie, it's all your fault, and I mean, you're kind of done for, and I'm not saying that, but I mean, really, if it's you and they're attracted to you, how do you turn that off? You can't just turn that off, I don't think, right? I mean, you're like, sorry, I can see you. I'm not trying to. I don't want to.
Yeah. And I wonder if having ghosts come around, that's what they want. They just want somebody to go, yeah, okay, I see you. That's fine. Okay, I can see you. What else do you want? But I think this is something different. I think it doesn't feel like a ghost. These are something other.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can say, is something other. I don't know what they are, but they're not anything other than other. It's strange.
This is really cliche Faye stuff, but we've all heard it enough, and I just wanted to ask. I don't think that you guys did, or if you did, it wouldn't be on purpose, but maybe it would jog a memory or something. Do you think it would be possible that when you guys were walking down that path that you moved something, that you just disturbed something, a rock? I don't even know. That's just something that popped into my head.
No, because I've picked up something from that path before when we were on the path, and almost got a voice in my head like, put that back, and I put it straight back down.
Wow. I mean, you're really sensitive. You're definitely gifted. I mean, the train thing alone is holy cow. But you have all this other stuff going on too. I mean, at least you were able to chase that dog-like invisible thing out of the house. Yeah. But it hasn't really, I mean, it's not fixed per se.
No, it seems to come and go.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell when it's not there. It feels really, really calm, and then something goes. And I don't think about this, you know. I'm usually working, you know, and I'm not thinking about things like this. And then you see something, or something touches you, or you feel something.
Right.
It's not something that I particularly pursue. I think because life is too busy at the moment for me to do that.
Right. And then when it starts up again, you're like, okay, so it hasn't gone anywhere. It just went dormant for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, is that something that you're looking for, Debbie? That, you know, or are you just trying to see what people think about these experiences? Or someone, of course, I always implore people to come forward with similar stories, especially stuff like this. I haven't had anything close to this really, except for Pam, and that was quite a long time ago. So I these are fascinating to me, terrifying though too, because this, I'm sorry, but things like this really do prove that there is some very, very strange things going on out in the wilds of the world. And hey, portals are real, guys. You could go ahead, look them up. The scientists even say this kind of a thing. And for you to actually see these different, you know, vertical ones and horizontal ones, and I don't even know what quite I would think if I actually saw something like that. I think it would be quite terrifying. But, okay, so sorry, long-winded. Did you want me to implement something like that where people could, I mean, you're more than welcome to give out your email address if you'd rather talk to people directly, but I always offer to act as a buffer if you would like me to.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't like that stuff going on in my house. So, but I don't want any charlatans out there, and I don't want people that are just out there to get the knocks and the bangs on the wall. I really want somebody out there that is more on the skeptical side, plus would be willing to hopefully help at least push it back to where it's from. Like, you don't belong in the house. And it's bad enough that it's now upsetting the neighbors' dogs, and you know exactly what they're barking at. That's the funniest thing. Not funny. You know what I'm saying. It's not funny, but it's funny. I don't like hearing that you can't even look out your favorite window now. I mean, that's a bummer.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be quite happy for that because I want to understand. I want to understand what's going on, what these things are, as much as we can understand what these things are.
Yes.
I think the thing that was in the house that came from the past was different from these shadow things and whatever was behind the holly.
Right.
I think so. And whatever was on that mound in Scotland, you know, it's almost like individuals, isn't it? You can have, you know, kind people and hateful people, and it seems as though you have different things coming through these things.
You've essentially got the Somerset version of Skinwalker Ranch out there is what it sounds like. I mean, you haven't seen a Bigfoot yet, but let's not, you know, put it past that area. My gosh, Debbie. Yeah, a lot of that stuff just sounds really super nefarious. That thing that ran out of the house and was panting or whatever it was doing on the wall. Oh boy, that one got me. I would not be happy camper with that situation at all.
I was just glad it was out of the house. I was just really, really glad it was out of the house. What really creeped me out was it had been in the house for about 6 weeks and had hidden itself. And it was only that I happened to be looking through the doorway and saw the rug lift up, and it was one corner in, the middle scrunched up and the other side scrunched up.
Right.
So it was like 2 or 3 actions to really, you know, rock this rug up, and watched it happen that I knew it was here.
Do you think it did that on purpose? It goes, oh, Debbie's watching the rug. Watch this, Debbie.
I don't know. That's even creepier, isn't it?
It is. It's horribly creepy. It's because to have it that sentient and to want to interact with you, that's a whole nother level of nope right there. I'm sorry. That's not cool. You got the orange blossom in your face when you're laying in bed. No. That's not nice. You need to have some boundaries. Whatever you are.
Yeah, exactly. Boundaries are needed. So that's why we got a big lump of iron outside the front door.
You poor thing. I would probably go, okay, who's got a massive truck? I need the biggest piece of iron I can find in the UK out in my yard. See, no, I wonder though, because, you know, when Pam sent me the nail, essentially, I believe I've read, and I could be wrong and just speaking out of turn, but I believe I've read where people have actually placed it above like every door or, you know, windows. I might be pushing it, but I think I've read about the, you know, above every door kind of a thing. And obviously you don't want to get like a massive, like boulder size piece of iron and put it in front of each door. If it takes that, hey, I would be down too. I wouldn't blame you. And, before I forget, you sent a picture of the path, and it is extremely creepy, circular, weird. Is it okay if I use that for the episode image? Everyone can see exactly where we're talking about. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all.
I gotta say, Debbie, this is one of the more unique and involved cases I think that has come across in a little while, you know, because most things have happened, you know, years ago, and they're still amazing stories and encounters, don't get me wrong, but with this being an ongoing thing, and creatures and with claws and all of the other entities that it seems to be either drawing or manifesting.
It just makes me think it's the energy that these things are drawn to energy because I have no idea who these people are that we see. There's no one that any one of us have recognised. You know, dead relative or anything, you know, friend or these are completely unknown to us, which makes me think they're drawn to the energy, that they're feeding on the energy.
That's a really good point, that there's no personal tie-in with the quote-unquote classic ghosts. There's no personal tie-in. You don't feel like it's a Nana or a Papa or anybody. Yeah.
Nope. Nope, not at all. Nope, don't recognise them, don't feel any, familiarity with any of them. And they're just, it's almost as though they want to be seen and they want to be acknowledged.
And they know that you're the one that can do that.
Yeah, it's one of these things that you're almost getting to I'm almost getting to the point where I'm like, you know what? There must be marked people around, because there are it's multiple things that happen during my life. And there must be something. So after, actually I forgot about this because this really creeped me out. Absolutely, totally freaked me out completely. At the end of June or July, so where I work had a craft fair. And so I had to be in work for it. And there were people coming out, all in and out all day. And this woman came in. She must have been about, 75, 80, dressed all in pink. And she made a beeline for me. I'd never met her before. I don't think I'll ever meet her again. And she said, and I can't remember, I couldn't work out what the last word was, because we had masks on, and it was, I know you can see them, or I know you can see things. And she walked straight over to me and said that.
And then walked away?
And then engaged me in conversation. And I'm thinking the entire time, you know what I'm thinking.
Okay, either one of those words would be very creepy. Them or things. For her to just walk, a stranger says that to you after all the things that you actually have seen? I mean, what?
Yeah. And how would she know that? I was actually at work. I was in, work several miles away from where I live, and there were loads of people around, and to walk up and make a beeline for me and to say that, and either one of those words are creepy, isn't it?
Yes.
I know you can see them or things. That's weird. That I found really creepy.
I mean, but it also does seem like maybe your daughter has this quote unquote gift as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. Which makes you think about, makes me think about genetics and possibly things in the, receptors, something in the back of your eye, something in your mind, something in your brain that you can see a different wavelength, you can see an energy, that's what it makes me think. We did this experiment once a couple of years ago. So there was, my sister lives in Cornwall, and she had a repeating ghost go past her front window. And it was a little man in a Tudor costume. She said, I can see him, and my husband can't. So all four of us sat there in front of the windows, watching the windows. So there was my sister, her husband, myself, and my husband, and we all sat there, and this thing walked past the window, and my sister and I could see it, and we independently then went and described it, and her husband and my husband couldn't. So that makes you think, is there something that how people can see, like colour blindness, or people can see, I can't see those magic eye things at all. Is it something like that?
Yeah, and unfortunately for you, I just wonder, considering the plethora of activity that seems like it got kicked up when you walked down that path, it's like, how many paths in the world could you walk down and maybe kick up the same thing, right? Or did you just happen across such an active area with this entity or entities that are, very strong. I don't know.
I think the first, I think because we know there's multiple areas in the world that have these portals, or whatever you want to call them. So is it the person and the energy they put out? Are these things all around us all the time, and most people don't see them?
Have you ever thought about, and I don't even know if this would be a good idea, good or bad, but have you ever thought about, going down to the path and just speaking to it? I mean, do they understand? I don't know, but, just saying, hey, you don't really need to draw all these things to my house.
Okay, so I've actually apologised to the path before. This sounds really weird. About 2 or 3 years ago, again, it was Midsummer's Day. Why Midsummer's Day must be important. We've got some stone circles north of us called Stanton Drew, and I had never visited them, never, ever, ever visited them. And so we went as a family to have a look around at them. And they're big stone circles. There's sort of, I think there's 2, and then there's like separate, like little stone circles. And really hot day, Midsummer's Day, baking hot, really, baking hot day, not a lot of wind. The moment I entered the circle, it was like being pushed back by a really violent wind. But it was, when you lean into a wind and your clothing gets blown behind you.
Mm-hmm.
It was that, but it wasn't happening to anyone else.
See, the idea of that wind is interesting because I think there's actually something called like a fairy wind or a fey wind, something like that. And the idea that you went into the stone circle, which they're tied into stones and boulders and, just nature stuff. And that's where that happened. That's interesting.
Mm.
And it's not weird at all, by the way, that you tried to apologize to the path. That's why I brought that up because, you hear a lot of times people saying, well, just voice what you feel, voice what you want. Tell them to, they need to have their boundaries. Tell them to go away. We hear that a lot from quite a few people.
Which is what we were doing when we chased it down out of the house. We were telling it to go away.
Right.
But anyway, we went to Stanton Drew and I got pushed by this wind and we came back home. And again, I think I brought something home. With me. That left after a couple of days or something. I was bored. I don't know. But we happened to walk down the path and I almost got things thrown at me. I got tripped up by roots and I got brambles up my arm and got scratched by things. I turned round and apologised and went, I'm really sorry if I brought something down the path. And the leaves shook in reply. It was the weirdest thing ever.
And holy cow, the leaves shook in reply? Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. You're like, okay, I would be over there in just a shake of a lamb's tail. That is supposedly very quick. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Anybody that is, so you're in Somerset, correct?
Yeah.
Anyone that is, driving distance, willing to go out there, get in touch with me, Shannon at intothefrayradio.com, and I will converse with you a little bit. And obviously, if you're contacting me about that, hopefully you have listened to this whole episode that Debbie just was kind enough to relay to us so that you'll already have all the details of the goings on. And, just let me know what kind of experience you've personally had or had as a group. and possibly what you may be able to help Debbie with, of course. I'm sure she's not trying to banish it from existence, just put a bubble a little bit further out from her house, right? So,
yeah.
We're not asking for a full-on, I don't know the better term than exorcism or anything like that, because it's not, that's not what this would be. But for lack of a better term, we just need the bubble to be extended, the safety bubble of the boundary extended around her home a little bit more. So if you guys out there in or around Somerset in the UK, please get in touch with me so that we can possibly help Debbie and her family get a better night's sleep. Because I know that as much as I love this stuff, I wouldn't want that stuff going on in and around my house. That is the biggest bag of nope I can think of. Gosh. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being patient with the scheduling. It's been extra crazy lately, and I so appreciate you waiting on me to finally be able to hop on with you. I didn't know about all the details, and I am thoroughly creeped out, and I'm sitting here, it's noon, high noon, bright as all can be, because it's Nevada, and I'm a little creeped out right now. That is some really, truly, it's fascinating stuff, but it's a big bag of nope for me.
It's fascinating, which is why I want to know what's going on. Yeah, education is, you're forewarned is forearmed, and you know what's going on and what to do about it. And it's been, it shifts your worldview, I will say. Yes. I mean, even with compared to what you have just relayed, my simple Shadow Man experience was enough to shift my worldview all those many years ago, when it's a slap of truth that says there's a lot of things in this world that are right next to us that we do not understand. And they're probably always there. We just can't always see them, except you, ma'am, you can see them a whole lot more than other people, which I really don't know that I envy you that, because that's, anyway, yeah, we got to get you some help out there. And I really, really, guys, Shannon at intothefrayradio.com, reach out to me. I'm not going to grill anybody. I mean, I'm no expert on anything, but I just want to try to put Debbie in touch with the best people that I can. That's all. So, Debbie, we will be in touch. I want to know, moving forward, just any, new happenings. Because obviously obviously it's recorded, but I've been taking notes this whole time so that if, just day to day, if things go on, I want to keep adding to your notes so that when hopefully we get somebody out there or somebody's out there that I can, I can relay all the information that I have to them and have them well armed, just like you said, right? Be as well armed as we can. But just keep in contact with me, and I'm going to try to help as much as I can here. Yes, I've started keeping a diary, and I've just looked at it, actually, and there's one thing which I haven't told you about, which freaked me out. Yeah, go ahead. Well, so stroking my head was on the 3rd of September. On the 10th of September, so a couple of weeks ago, I went out to work and was just locking the front door. And so, like I said, we've got a wall around sort of like a gravelled courtyard, and I've got one of those, those plastic like shed things that you put bikes in. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Now, the cat like to climb on the roof when there isn't something on there, this single-story roof, and then jump off onto this plastic box and then down into the house. And it makes a peculiar noise when something lands on it. It makes this dull, thudding, like, clunk, clunk noise. All the cats are in, and I was just locking the door, and this cabinet shed thing made this clunk clunk noise, and there was nothing visible, and it's about 10 foot from me, and I had to walk past it to get to my car, and I wasn't happy.
Of course it has to happen when you have to walk by it, right? To go, it's something 10 feet away. You're going to see what the heck made that noise. And it's a very distinctive noise, as you said. So,
Yeah.
So maybe the
was,
dog-like thing is just...
Yeah.
See people? See what's going on out there? We got the Ghostbusters dogs out there, except they're invisible, and she cannot see them, and they're fooling with her. It really is, though, isn't it? It's that trickster element to the whole thing.
Yeah. Because I, it was side on to me, and it was almost though I'm going to make this noise so that you know that we're still here or still out here.
All right.
And bright sunshine, we've had a really lovely September where it's really warm and bright sunshine and sunny, and I was just locking the front door.
Yep, just letting you know it's still around. How comforting, right? Yeah. You're like, oh, thanks. Yeah. Hello, thank you. Well, yeah, keep that diary going. You've got me on Facebook, and then you can email me either way. But let's keep in touch here, because especially once this airs, I wanna hopefully find some folks to get out there to you.
Just what it is and how to deal with it, and
right. Yeah, no, you're not going to be alone in this. So just we'll get on the case here, as we like to say. So, well, Debbie, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time today to talk to me.
You are welcome. Bye.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. Zen master Dogen put it this way. He said, "The spring does not become the summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring." When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, "Now get up and walk across the room." And he comes back and he says, "Where are your footprints?" They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.